So I think the first episode of a podcast is always awkward and weird. This is the episode where many won't really listen to, but every podcast needs to start from somewhere. What's up guys, my name is Koachu and thanks for finally joining me in the first episode of the Fun for You podcast. In today's episode, we'll be mainly discussing why this podcast exists and what my plans are for the podcast. And real quick, depending on where you're enjoying this from, like YouTube or your podcast player of your choice, please be sure to leave a review, like and subscribe for more future content. That'd be greatly appreciated. So enough of the plugs, let's roll that intro. Sorry guys, I just need to interrupt this podcast episode real quick and make a quick change. I didn't want to re-record this episode, but in this pilot episode, I'll be referring to this podcast as the Fun for You podcast. However, at the very last minute, I had a burst of inspiration and want to officially call this podcast or series the Coffee Break Show. The reason being is that this show is more of a break from my usual anime and manga content, and I feel like it's only fair to give it a unique name to it. Plus, I really like coffee, hence Coffee Break. And just to be clear, everything that I say in this episode will still relate to what I want this podcast or show to be, just with a different name. Anyway, sorry about that, and I really appreciate your understanding. Okay, enough of that, let's get back to the episode. Okay, so if you happen to be an audio listener, I just want to share that there is a video component to this podcast over on my YouTube channel, just in case you're interested in seeing what I look like and maybe want to watch some sleek coffee making intro that I created for the show. Just search for Fun for You. After that, it cuts into a slowdown video of some coffee dripping into a Chemex. I think this is a nice balance for me personally, as I wanted a video component to the podcast, yet still have the convenience to record anytime and anywhere, as long as I'm doing the voiceover for the podcast. To which that's what you're listening to right now. But overall, there is no difference in the content for the most part. Everything should still be the same, at least for now I think. Anyway, I've been trying to kick off this podcast since the beginning of the year, and it seems like there's always something that gets in the way. Stuff like work and personal life stuff. However, I will say I'm pretty happy with what I've been releasing thus far and feel like I can bring something more to the table. And if you happen to not know who I am, that's okay. Basically, I run a small YouTube channel where I make videos about anime, manga, and the creative process. So far, it's mostly been anime unboxing videos, but I'm hoping to go farther with this video and audio podcast. Now, because this is more of a pilot episode and me just testing the water a bit, I will mainly be introducing myself, discussing what I want this podcast to be, and why I'm doing this. So let's get right to it. Why is this podcast called The Coffee Break Show? Well, quite honestly, it's mainly because I didn't want to limit myself to what I can talk about. I want to have an open discussion about the many different skills and emotional experience when it comes to content creation. And when I say content creation, it doesn't necessarily mean just making YouTube videos. I want to talk about stuff like comic books, anime, geeky things, and maybe some tech stuff because those are the kind of things that inspired me to be creative and want to make things. Not only that, there might be some personal stories that I think could be pretty relatable for those who are still trying to find their own style and voice as a creator. So I know I might be hurting myself because of the whole SEO thing or search engine optimization, and it'll be a slow start if it's called the Fun for You podcast, but I'm fine with that for now. I don't mind the grind. I'm mainly doing this for myself, but also for those who might be coming from a YouTube channel and social media feed. Thus, I am relying on quote-unquote name recognition, to which I probably don't have much of, but I think that should be fine for now. I just want to make a platform where I can talk freely about my personal experience when it comes to content creation. And I am just going to apologize now. I am going to say the word content creation or any other word similar to that a lot. I don't really know any better word that fits this description on what I'm doing. So let's just transition to me introducing myself, and I'm sure in future episodes I'll find better segues, but for now this will do. Like I mentioned earlier, I am a quote-unquote content creator who mainly makes YouTube videos, or at least that is what I'm calling myself for now. I am originally from a small town in Pennsylvania and moved to Northern California area. This was a huge change for me mainly because it felt like I'm starting from scratch. My family and friends are all back home and I'm pretty much alone out here. So why did I make this drastic change, you might ask? Well, to be frank, it was because of money, or at least finding a job. There seems to be more opportunities out here on the West Coast versus my hometown. There are actually a lot of opportunities out here that I want to take advantage of someday. So yeah, that's that. I went to school for graphic design and was mainly looking for a design job and was hoping to find something in the tech or entertainment field. But as it is so common, sometimes things just don't go the way you planned it. Right now, I'm working in the biotech field. Yeah, I know, super random. I'm not sure what I can really say, and I'm probably under some sort of NDA, but for the past 2 years now, I haven't really been doing what I enjoy the most, and have definitely been suffering. Not physically, but emotionally, creative-wise. I feel like I'm probably disappointing myself for not having anything to show creatively, and that many of my college classmates I feel like has already found their calling. They are building amazing and professional portfolios, and it seems like I just stayed the same for the past few years now. And I will admit I might sound a bit vain or naive, but art was one of the things that I was really good at. I'm not saying I was the best, but it was what I based my whole personality off of. Even in high school, people would know me as the artsy one. Anyway, I kind of went off on a tangent a little bit. So what was I talking about? Right, I was just supposed to give you guys a quick backstory and save all that mushy stuff for a future episode if you guys are interested in that kind of stuff. But this is the kind of content that I don't really see people talking about, and I want to have more of an open discussion with those who are trying to be creative or find a career in the creative field like what I'm trying to do. And hopefully that will relate to you or anyone else you know. So yeah, I've been making videos for a few years now, and it's been kind of off and on again type thing. But as of right now, I want to go all in and become a legit content creator or filmmaker, I guess. And hopefully this podcast might help further that growth. I mostly want to have some sort of producer type role in the future. And I think having this podcast and video production type thing will definitely strengthen my portfolio, and hopefully I'll learn a lot from it, and I'll be sharing you guys my experience with the whole thing, and hopefully you guys can learn from it as well. Now, this isn't the first time I started a podcast before. I've actually created a podcast called the Reanimate Podcast with a group of 5 or 6 people, and it was an experience that I will never forget. I believe this was back in 2016 to 17. We were an international podcast group from around the world talking about anime and video game related stuff. And I won't lie, I thought we were real good, at least once we hit episode 5. We had 2 hosts from England, one from Florida, one from Texas, and later another one from California. Unfortunately, we only lasted what I think was 6 months with 20 episodes, but we made some epic con vlogs, anime haul videos, and I still think to this day I'm very proud of what we've produced. I'll add a link for you guys to check out if you happen to be interested, and I recommend listening to part of episode 1 just so you know who we are, and then skip some, maybe listen to episode in the 2-digit range, and definitely check out the haul videos and con vlogs because I think those were some really good videos from my other co-hosts, or at least former co-hosts, I guess. But unfortunately, things started to fall off in the end, mostly because of the different time zone, and everyone was at a different age group, so a lot of things were happening. But I want to save those deeper discussions in a future episode where I can talk about failed projects, and maybe it wasn't such a bad thing that it ended. But the main takeaway is that I learned a lot about myself and what I was capable of at that time, and want to use that knowledge to make this podcast the best it can be. And speaking about what this podcast is going to be about, hey, see what I did there? I want this podcast to be a show where we can have an open discussion about the creative process and just having fun making stuff. Sometime I will talk about some personal stuff similar to that what I talked about earlier, but I also want to talk about some fun stuff like anime and manga and YouTube and the whole entertainment type things. You could say it's kind of like a reflection on what I consume, because when I consume anything for enjoyment, I try to break down why I like something so much and see if I can learn from it and reproduce it in my own style for the content that I want to make. I also want to have a discussion about the gadget and tech industry. When I first started my YouTube channel, I wanted to become a tech YouTuber, and that is because those were the kind of content that I enjoyed the most. But if I have to be real with myself, I don't think I can offer anything different or unique to the tech community. To tell you the truth, when I make my videos, I'm always thinking about how I can make my videos be more like MKBHD, TLD, or even Austin Evans, to name a few. And quite honestly, I can't. Now, that doesn't mean I've given up on making quality tech-related videos, but I want to take all those inspirations and adapt it to the content that I want to make. And those will mainly be anime, manga, and artsy related stuff, and of course, the creative process to which I'll be discussing. Okay, so hopefully you will find this interesting and not too confusing, but who knows, things are always changing. So I don't want to commit to anything just yet and want this podcast to grow freely. As I mentioned earlier, I'm mainly doing this for myself in the end. I feel like we should have an open discussion about the ups and downs when it comes to content creation. This can be like artsy stuff like drawing and painting, but also the technical and non-traditional side like filmmaking. But as of right now, I see this mainly me talk about my creative process and taking the moment to reflect on any new challenges I face and techniques that I pick up. So I guess you could call it an extra video commentary about my filmmaking process when I make my YouTube videos. Or it might just become me just venting about stuff. But joking aside, I think this podcast will be pretty unique in its own way. I'm not a big name YouTuber or a real professional designer or filmmaker, but I'm just someone who has a creative background and just trying to find his own creative path. Anyway, that's it for me. I think I'll leave you with that and call it an end to this pilot episode of a podcast. Hopefully in future episodes, I'll be able to reach that 30 to 1 hour mark, maybe, depending on what I talk about, and hopefully as this podcast grows. So I think I should leave with the generic outro for any podcast where I ask for a review on your podcast service of your choice. And I just want to say I will mainly be focusing on getting this show running on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. And if you're watching the video version over on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/funvichu, like this video, like it, leave a comment on what you want me to talk about in the next episode, either in the video or on social. Subscribe and tap that bell to stay updated, and if you're interested, please check out my website funvichu.com and my Patreon for some extra content and merch. Links will be down below in the description. That'd be greatly appreciated. As always, you can catch me on all the social media. I'm at funvichu, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye.